Shalom, Israel. Blessed Sabbath, Most High in Christ blessed. My name is Brother Zerubbabel.
My name is Ezra Zelazar.
We are with Children of Israel, and we are here once again on the Sabbath day to bring wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the scriptures to the body of Israel. Um, Last week, we began dealing with the calendar of the Most High. Uh, Last week's lesson, we dealt with the day and breaking down the day, such as when does the day start? Um, you know what I mean? Just basic things about the day in general. Because we have people that teach that the Sabbath begins in, from morning to morning. Some people teach it's from evening to evening. So we broke all of that down and brought clarity to what a day is to the Most High. This week, we're going to be dealing with the week. So we're going to go through, we're going to deal with the day, we're going to deal with the week, we're going to deal with the month, and then we're going to deal with the entire year and break this down to bring clarity and understanding as to how the calendar is supposed to work. So we're going to open up with Acts 5 and 29.
The book of Acts, chapter 5 and verse 29. Then Peter and the other apostles answered and said, "We ought to obey God rather than men."
So the Peter and the other apostles, they answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than men. So when it comes to dealing with the calendar, the high holy days, the Sabbath days, we've got to obey what God had the prophets write. All of the prophets. He made it clear to us how the days begin, when they end, how many days are in a week, when does the day begin, when does the week begin, all of that. Um, and we have to obey it. What's happening right now, that's why I'm kind of lost for words, because I'm just thinking about how much confusion and turmoil is going on in Israel because we're all doing different things. It's crazy. And a lot of it comes down to Israel, just for whatever reason, just love to follow men. We love to idolize men. And we just love to believe that almost anything a man says, and we'll disregard what God says. So it says we ought to obey God rather than men. We've got to go back and study for ourselves. You know what I mean? Any man telling you, um, don't think for yourself, that's crazy. You have to go back and study. You got to go back and look at the history. You got to go back and understand what the forefathers wrote. Let's go to Romans 15:4.
The book of Romans, chapter 15 and verse 4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope.
And that's what we did. We had to go back and look at the things that were written aforetime, which were written for our learning. And we came to understand, like we pointed out last week when we dealt with the day, that the whole time that we had been believing what these men had told us, that the moon was appointed for seasons, that we had at one time believed because we listened to these men that it was talking about the four seasons of spring, summer, fall, and winter. And then once we broke it down, we went and looked at what was written aforetime. We came to the understanding that there are several precepts that gives you the understanding that seasons can be anytime. The season can be the day season. The season can be the night season. which gives more clarity as to what the precept is talking about. When it tells you that the moon was pointed for seasons, it's not talking about the four seasons. It's talking about the day season, the night season, which we clearly showed and proved through the precepts in last week's lesson. And we're going to do the same thing this week when we deal with the week. Just as we dealt with the day, we're going to deal with the week. The next lesson, we're going to deal with the month. We're going to use what's written. Okay? And that's what we're supposed to. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. Let's go to Deuteronomy 32:7.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 32 and verse 7. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elder, and they will tell thee.
So we've got to remember the days of old. How did our forefathers actually really deal with this calendar? And when you go back and look and examine how our forefathers dealt with the calendar and the high holy days, you find that there was a lot of a lot of wickedness going on, just like you see today, a lot of confusion going on. And then because we got to understand our forefathers did a lot of stuff wrong, and the Most High just kind of winked at it. He let it go. He let us get away with a lot of stuff.
Right.
From the beginning, we weren't supposed to have multiple wives, but our forefathers started taking it upon themselves to have multiple wives. The Most High winked at it. We got into all kinds of forms of idolatry. We were making our children pass through the fire. We got into all kind of magic and witchcraft and wizardry and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And the Most High would let it go. And when we go back and we read that history, we got to understand that, okay, the history was written aforetime for us to learn from, that we don't make the same mistakes. Like right now, you have people that are adding a 13th month to the calendar and calling it the second month of Adar. Number one, we never had names of the months. Where did we get these names from? We got them from Babylon. Copying the Babylonians, taking on these Babylonian customs that we were told not to follow. But just because our forefathers wrote them in the scriptures, today our people say, well, it was the forefathers used, that's what they called them. Like they were in error. Why do you think we're in punishment now? The Most High allowed us to continue to break his commandments. He gave us little punishments here and there until we came to the fullness of our sins, which when you read the scriptures, came under Manasseh. That's where the Most High finally said, you know what? I have had it. I'm done. You guys, I'm really going to punish you guys now. So we have to go back and look what was written aforetime. There was no second month of Adar written in the scriptures. We didn't even use those names Adar and all of that in the scriptures. It was first month, second month. We'll cover that in the next lesson, just like we're going to cover in the lesson today. What were the days? What were the days of the week called? They weren't called Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You don't find those in the scriptures, but we use them today because we're here in Mystery Babylon in America. America uses Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But is that what our forefathers used in the past? No. So let's say we're still here another 1,000 years from now, and our future generations start looking back on the Israelites that were in the American captivity. It's like, oh, they were calling the days of the week Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. How would it look if they suddenly say, you know what, since our forefathers used them back then, that's what we're going to use today. And they start calling the names of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and so on. Is that right for them to do? No, it's not, because we are in error. We're following after our captors. And the same thing, we got to use that same analogy when we look back at our forefathers in the past, when they started using these Babylonian names for the calendar. These Babylonian names have all kind of wickedness behind them. Like, one of the names of the month is named after Tammuz. And, and our forefathers were using it. Where did they get that from? Because they started following after these Babylonians. And just like we're still doing today, a lot of our people are still celebrating Tammuz, celebrating Christmas, and all of this, following after the Babylonian customs, which we were clearly not to do. But just because it's written in the scriptures does not mean that we're supposed to follow suit. We're supposed to look at that and say, you know what? We can't make the same mistakes as our forefathers. They were using those Babylonian pagan names. We can't do that. All right. Let's go to Isaiah 46 and 9 through 10.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 46 and verse 9. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is none else. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from the ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure.
So he's telling us, remember the former things of old. We have to remember the former things of old. But just because our forefathers did it does not mean that we go and do the same thing. So just because King Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines, does that mean I'm supposed to say, man, our forefather Solomon was bad? That dude had 1,000 women. Man, I want to be like Solomon. I want 1,000 women. No. But that's essentially what some of our brothers are doing today when they are looking at our forefathers in the past that, oh yeah, they followed the dark moon. They were following the crescent moon. They were following the full moon. Just because they were doing it doesn't mean that it was correct. We had already been warned from the beginning that we were going to go off and be in error like this. As it says, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times of things that are not yet done. We hadn't gone off yet, but it was already prophesied that we were going to make this error in following the moon. It was already prophesied from the beginning. But today we don't want to listen to the Most High. We want to listen to men because we idolize men. We got all kinds of idolatry caught up in us, and we've got to get rid of this idolatry. Let's go to Isaiah 40 and 21.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 40 and verse 21. Says, have ye not known? Have ye not heard? Had it not been told to you from the beginning? Have ye not understood from the foundation of the earth?
We were told from the beginning it was supposed to be man and wife, and they two would be one. Not three wives and one man being one. We were told from the beginning how the seasons and the earth orbiting the sun and everything like that is what brings on the seasons, the fall, the winter, the spring, and the summer. All of that was given to our forefather Enoch. But somewhere in translation, somewhere in our captivities, we decided to start following after the other nations and following after their moon gods and following after the moon, which we were told not to do. We were warned. We just didn't listen. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Had that not been told you from the beginning? Everything was told us from the beginning. We just don't want to understand. It says, have ye not understood from the foundations of the earth? No, Israel is hard-headed and stiff-necked. We have not understood. That's why we're still making the same mistakes today. And that's why you see camps and groups and churches of Israelite groups arguing and fighting and going at each other about when the high holy days start, about when the Sabbath starts. There is no unity because we don't want to listen to what God left us, the written word he left us. We want to listen to men. Let's go to Isaiah 48 and 3.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 48 and verse 3. I have declared the former things from the beginning, and they went forth out of my mouth, and I showed them. I did them suddenly, and they came to pass.
He says, I've declared the former things from the beginning, and they went forth out of my mouth. He spoke it. He had the prophets write it. He had Enoch write it. He had Moses write it. He had Esdras write it. He had all the prophets, Jeremiah, Isaiah, on and on. He had them write it. The words came out of his mouth. He spoke it. They wrote it. It was left for us. He showed them. He showed Solomon. He showed Enoch. He says, I did them suddenly and they came to pass. In creation, he spoke it. It came into existence. He created the star, the moon, the sun, the luminaries. He created the earth. He created all the animals. He created the waters, the land, the plants, the trees, the rain, the sky, everything, the people, all the different nations. He created it all. He spoke it. It came into existence. The thing is, do we want to listen and believe it? Do we want to get true knowledge, understanding, and wisdom of this word? Or do we just want to be pacified and be entertained? Because that's what a lot of our people are choosing. They're choosing to be entertained rather than actually learning. Let's go to Isaiah 28 and 9 through 10.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 28 and verse 9. Whom shall he teach knowledge, and whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little.
So we must go precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little to get understanding. In order to interpret the scriptures, we have to follow what was laid out by the Most High. He told us how to get it. We need to leave that hermeneutics alone. Stop following after these Christian apologetics and these Christian pastors that are following these philosophies and doctrines of our captors in following after a Greek god called Hermes. That's where hermeneutics comes from. And it's crazy how many Israelites you hear out there using it and following hermeneutics in order to interpret the Bible, just so they can sound like they got more knowledge than all their brothers. Going against their own brothers using the philosophies and doctrines in tricks of Esau. That's what it comes down to. But he says, for precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line upon line, here a little and there a little. That's what we have to do. We have to use the precepts to get understanding. Let's go to Psalms 119 and 104.
The book of Psalms, chapter 119 and verse 104. Through thy precepts I get understanding. Therefore I hate every false way.
Through thy precepts I get understanding. We have to stick to the precepts to get understanding. Therefore, I hate every false way. When you start going through the scriptures and you start seeing that a lot of the things that some of the camps and camp leaders are teaching is false, you got to hate it. And you have to teach the truth. You've got to bring the truth out, just like we did last week. We saw that there was a problem in the translation, or not the translation, but the understanding of what the scriptures are talking about when it says that the moon was appointed for seasons. We went and looked at the precepts and we found the precepts that clearly shows that it's talking about day season and night season. It's not talking about the four seasons of fall, winter, spring, and summer. That it's not talking about that. So we got to do that all around when we deal with the day, when we deal with the week, we deal with the month, we deal with the year. We've got to go by the precepts and what's written in order to get understanding. Through thy precepts, I get understanding. Therefore, I hate every false way. So we're going to deal with the day. We're going to first go to creation again, like we did last week when we dealt with the day and things like that. So we got to use it again in order to deal with the week. So we're going to go to Genesis 1 and 1 through 31.
The book of Genesis, chapter 1 and verse 1. In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called sea. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yield seed, and the fruit tree yield fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yield fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day. And God said, let there be light in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And
Now
let them
stop
be.
right there again. So you notice it says, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Let's notice something again. Last week we pointed out that it doesn't say anything about months, does it? It also says nothing about weeks. It says, and for seasons and for days and years. All right, go ahead and read on.
Verse 15. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that had life, and fowls that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales and every living creature that moved, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fly the waters in the sea, and let the fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle, creeping thing, beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created him. Him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, have I given you every herb bringing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of the tree yields seed, to you it shall be for meat. And the eve and to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day.
And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. All right. So, what do we see happening here? We see the creation of the 7 day work week. The 7 day work week at the beginning of creation was being created. Let's go to Genesis 2 and 1 through 2.
The book of Genesis, chapter 2 and verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made.
So, 6 days he worked. On the seventh day, he rested. 7 days, 7 full days, an entire week. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to ask questions and we're going to answer them. So, we just read about the creation of the 7 day work week. What did God call the days of the week? That's the first thing we're going to tackle because we're here in Babylon the Great in America, where we've been taught that the names of the days of the week are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We've been taught that the week begins on Monday, that the work week begins on Monday, and which is crazy because even Esau is smart enough to understand um, with the Gregorian calendar how the calendar is supposed to work. They just made slight changes from the 364 Enoch calendar to the 365-day calendar. The changes they made were subtle, like the names they added to the days of the week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Did the Most High call the days of the week by these names? No. They were simply called the first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, seventh day. We didn't use names for the days of the week. That's simply what they were called. So let's say you want to go to the store tomorrow. Instead of saying I'm going to go to the store on Sunday, You will just say, I'm going to go to the tomorrow's the first day of the week. I'm going to go to the store.
Mhm.
That's what we did. That's how it's written in the scriptures. We didn't have names for the days of the week. The names that we're using today comes from the Gregorian calendar. All of these names have a pagan origin behind them. They're pagan in nature. That's one of the changes that Esau made to the week by calling it by what? A different name. Or the days of the week by a different name. Instead of using the first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, seventh day, like the Most High did, they gave them uh, names of their pagan gods, just like we'll deal with when we deal with the month. Um, Real quick, let's do this. Let me click on this. Open. I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Hold on, it's not popping up. What's going on? Oh, here it is. Took forever. I wonder why it took so long. Can you see it? That you can see it. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
So just simply go to Google, to Wikipedia and type in Gregorian calendar. It says the Gregorian calendar is the calendar used in most of the world. It was introduced in October 1582 by Pope Gregory the 13th as a modification of and replacement for the Julian calendar. The principal change was to space leap years differently so as to make the average calendar year 365.2425 days long, more closely approximating the 365.2422 day tropical or solar year. That is determined by the Earth's revolution around the sun. The rule for leap years is every year that is exactly divisible by 4 is a leap year, except for years that are exactly divisible by 100. But these centennial years are leap years if they are exactly divisible by 400. For example, the years 1700, 1800, and 1900 are not leap years, but the years 1600 and 2000 are. There were two reasons to establish the Gregorian calendar. First, the Julian calendar assumed incorrectly that the average solar year is exactly 365.25 days long, an overestimate of a little under 1 day per century, and thus has a leap year every 4 years without exception. They both are incorrectly um, estimating how long a year is when God says a year is 364 days long. So they came up with the Julian calendar that said it was 365.25. It says the Gregorian reform shortened the average calendar year by 0.0075 days to stop the drift of the calendar with respect to the equinoxes. What is 0.0075 days going to do? Use common sense. Is that going to make a significant change from the 365.25 day? You won't even recognize that difference in, you understand what I mean? You're not even going to recognize that difference. It tells us what the real, that's the reason that they're giving, but it tells you the real reason as we read on. It says The Gregorian reform shortened the average calendar year by 0.0075 days to stop the drift of the calendar with respect to the equinoxes. Second, this is the real reason, is what they're calling the second reason. In the years since the First Council of Nicaea in AD 325, the excess leap days introduced by the Julian algorithm had caused the calendar to drift such that the northern spring equinox was occurring well before its nominal 21st March date, which is not the 21st of March. The Pope changed it to the 21st of March. Well, we'll get into that when we get into, I believe, the month in the next lesson, or is it the year? Is one of them that we go in and talk about that and why they changed it. It was actually the 16th day of March. It's not the 21st. It was changed, and it's going to tell us in the next sentence why it was changed. It says it caused the calendar to drift such that the northern spring equinox was occurring well before its nominal 21st March date. This date was important to the Christian churches because it is fundamental to the calculation of the date of Easter. That's the real reason why they changed it. Had nothing to do with this 0.0075 drift in the days, you know what I mean? Which is nothing. It says to reinstate the association, the reform advanced the date by 10 days. Thursday, 4th October 1582 was followed by Friday, 15th October 1582. So they added 10 days to the calendar. It says, in addition, the reform also altered the lunar cycle used by the church to calculate the day for Easter, because astronomical new moons were occurring 4 days before the calculated dates. It is notable that whilst the reform introduced minor changes, there were minor changes to the Julian calendar, just like they made minor changes to the Enoch calendar. God says there's 364 days. They said it was 365.25 days. The Most High didn't use names for the months of the year. They came and started giving months of the names to the months of the year, using what? The names of their pagan gods. But they have enough sense to understand that the 7-day work week and the month and yearly calendar run independent of each other. It's not all just one, for lack of words, one calendar where everything, just runs from day one until the end of day two, as some of the people that use the lunar calendar are doing. Esau has enough sense to understand that these run independent of each other. The 7-day work week and the calendar for the for the months and years, they run independent of each other. Let me see. It says the reform was adopted initially by the Catholic countries of Europe and their overseas possessions over the next 3 centuries. The Protestant and Eastern Orthodox countries also moved to what they call the improved calendar, with Greece being the last European country to adopt the calendar for civil use only in 1923, to unambiguously specify a date during the transition period in contemporary documents or in history texts, with notations were given, tagged as old style or new style as appropriate. During the 20th century, most non-Western countries also adopted the calendar, at least for civil purposes. The Gregorian calendar, like the Julian calendar, is a solar calendar with 12 months. You know what? We're going to go through this when we deal with the months anyway, so I don't want to go too far into it. But as you can see, these changes were made to deceive us. But they didn't make these big changes as we're seeing. You can see our people are fighting over following the moon to determine seasons. Esau has enough common sense to understand that the moon does not determine when the season. It's mind blowing. It's obvious that the moon, by following the moon, your seasons fall behind every month by 10 days. And then you got to add this 13th month to the calendar to put the calendar back into its proper season. And then it starts falling backwards again the next year, falling backwards again the following year. Third year, you got to add a 13th month again. And then you're just following this cycle over and over again. At some point, you got to go, wait a minute. This does not make sense. The moon obviously doesn't have anything to do with seasons. It's a common sense thing that it's not the moon, that it's the sun that determines seasons. But you have some of our people that are just so stubborn that they don't want to listen to reason. What's right in front of our eyes the whole time, we don't want to open our eyes and see the truth and say, you know what, we were wrong. That's what we had to do. We were wrong. We were in error. Our Passover starts on Tuesday night at sundown, which is Wednesday. Did we have to add a 13th month? We haven't had to add anything. Our Passover is falling in the exact same day and time and see the season as it did last year and the year before and the year before. This is the third year we're using it now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the third year we're using it. We haven't had to make no change. Nothing. But we've sat back and we've watched all the other camps. There are some of the camps that are doing their Passover on certain days. And you look at when they're doing their Passover this year compared to last year, and you're like, wait a minute. Your Passover last year was like almost a month and a half earlier last year than what it is this year. How did that happen? Because they added that 13th month. If you're following the moon, it doesn't matter if it's the dark moon, full moon, crescent moon, it does not matter. Your calendar is going to fall behind because it is not the moon that determines the seasons. Let's use common sense, Israel. It's common sense. But going back to what we're talking about, the Most High did not give the days of the week names. It was just simply numbers. First day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, seventh day. All right. So we're going to get some precepts that prove that what the days of the week were called. All right. And it's no big elaborate secret. It's right here in the scriptures. If you go and search for it, go to Matthew 28:1. We're just going to run through them real quick because they're pretty much self-explanatory. Not going to spend too much time on them.
The book of Matthew, chapter 28 and verse 1. In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn towards the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre.
So the first day of the week, it didn't say on Sunday, it didn't say on Monday. Mark 16:2. This is just the other account of Mary going to the sepulchre. Go ahead and read.
And behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven
Where
and
were you at?
came and Matthew 28:2.
Mark 16:2.
Sorry, Mark 16:2. The book of Mark, chapter 16 and verse 2. And very early in the morning, the first day of the week, they came unto the sepulchre at the rising of the sun.
The first day of the week. It's not calling it Sunday or Monday. Let's go to the verse 9.
Verse 9. Now, when Jesus was risen early, the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, out of whom he had cast 7 devils.
Let's go to John 20 and 1.
John, the book of John, chapter 20 and verse 1. The first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre.
So we're just using these different accounts in Matthew, Mark, and John to show that the days of the week were named the first day, second day, third day, and so on. Let's go to Luke 24 and 1.
The book of Luke, chapter 24 and verse 1. Now upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them.
Okay, so it says, now upon the first day of the week. Give me 1 second. Let's go to Luke 24 and 21.
Luke 24 and verse 21. But we trusted that it had been he which should have redeemed Israel. And besides all this, today is the third day since these things were done.
So it says, but we trusted that it had been he which should have redeemed Israel, that he is talking about Christ. And beside all this, today is the third day since these things were done. It's not saying Wednesday. It's not saying Tuesday. Didn't have names. They used the number of the day. Let's go to John 20 and 19.
Book of John, chapter 20 and verse 19. Then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus and stood in the midst and said unto them, Peace be unto you.
Let's go to Acts 20 and 7.
The book of Acts, chapter 20 and verse 7. And upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continue his speech until midnight.
Let's go to 1 Corinthians 16:2.
The book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 16 and verse 2. Upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in stone, as God had prospered him, that there be no gathering when I come.
Okay, so again, what are we showing here? That the names of the weeks were not names. It was just simply using numbers. First day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, seventh day. Let's go to the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 6. Going to read from verses 38 through 53. This is giving almost a little bit of a background history of what we just read in Genesis 1.
2nd Esdras, chapter 6 and verse 38. And it says, And I said, O Lord, thou speakest from the beginning of the creation, even the first day.
Even the what?
Even the first day.
It don't say Sunday. It don't say Monday. Go ahead and read.
And sayest thus, let heaven and earth be made, and thy word was a perfect work. And then was the spirit and the dark and the and then was the spirit and darkness and silence were on every side. The sound of man's voice was not yet formed. Then commanded thou a fair light to come forth of thy treasures, that thy word might appear. Upon the second day thou madest the spirit of the firmament, and commanded it to part asunder, and to make a division betwixt the waters, and the one part might go up, and the other remain beneath.
So it
Upon
says, upon the second day, thou madest the spirit of the firmament. Read on.
upon the third day thou didst command the water should gather in the seventh part of the earth. Sixth part hast thou dried up and kept them. So the intent that of these some being planted of God until might serve thee. For as soon as thy word went forth, the work was made. For immediately there was great and immutable fruit, and many and diverse pleasures for the taste, and flowers of uncharitable colors, and odors of wonderful smell. This was done the third day. Upon the fourth day thou commandest that the sun should shine, and the moon give her light, and the stars should be in order, and gavest them a charge to do service unto man that was to be made.
It says,
Upon
and gave them a charge to do service unto man that was to be made, because
mhm,
the luminaries were made on the fourth day. Go ahead and read.
verse 47, upon the fifth day thou sayest unto the seventh part where the waters were gathered, that it should bring forth living creatures, fowls, and fishes. So it came to pass. For the dumb waters and without life brought forth living things at the commandment of God, that all people might praise by the wonderful works. Then didst thou ordain two living creatures, the one thou callest Enoch, and the other Leviathan, and didst separate the one from another for the seventh part, namely where the waters was gathered together might not hold them both. Unto Enoch thou gavest one part which was dried up the third day, that he should dwell in the same part wherein are 1,000 hills. But unto the Leviathans thou gavest the seventh part, namely the moist, and hast kept him to be devourer of whom thou wilt and when. Upon the sixth day thou gavest commandment unto the earth, that before thee it should bring forth beasts, cattle, and creeping things.
So again, these precepts are proving that the days of the week were not given names. It was the first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day. In this passage here, it didn't deal with the seventh day with the Most High resting. All right. So it should be clear what was the names of the days of the week. We didn't have names. It was a number system: first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, seventh day. So now the next question: how many days are there in a week? It's a simple question to answer. Is go to Genesis 1 and 5. We'll just go through it real quick. How many days of the week are there? Because you have people following the lunar Sabbath saying that you could have 8 days in the week, you could have 9 days in the week, but they're I keep forgetting the word that they use. What are they calling them? Transitional days.
Right.
Can't have 8 days in a week. Can't have 9 days in a week. How many days are there in a week? Go ahead and read Genesis 1 and 5.
The book of Genesis, chapter 1 and verse 5. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day.
Go to verse 8. So we have one day.
And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day.
So now we know we got 2 days. Go to verse 13.
And the evening and the morning were the third day.
We know we got 3 days. Go to verse 19.
And the evening and the morning were the fourth day.
Now we know we got 4 days in the week. Go to verse 23.
And the evening and the morning were the fifth day.
We got 5 days. Verse 31.
Verse 31. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day.
The 6th day. We got 6 days. Let's go to chapter 2 and verse 1 through 3.
Genesis chapter 2 and verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made.
So the Most High made the 7-day work week. There are no names to the days of the week. It's simply a number system. 6 days to work. The seventh day is a day of rest. It can't be broken. But you've got people following this lunar Sabbath doctrine, even with the if you're not following the lunar Sabbath, if you're following the full moon, the dark moon, or the sliver moon, you still are going to have days and months where there's 29 days in the month. You're going to have days where there's 30 days in the month. That can't be so. All right. We're going to deal with that next time when we deal with the month. All right. So, how many days are there in the week? There are 7 days in a week. We're going to prove it through precepts. Let's go to 2nd Ezra 5 and 13.
The book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 5 and verse 13. To show thee such tokens, I have a leave, and if thou wilt pray again, and weep as now, and fast 7 days, thou shalt hear yet greater things.
So he says, to show thee such tokens I have leave, and if thou wilt pray again and weep as now and fast 7 days, thou shalt hear yet greater things. What we're going to find is what's going on here is that Esdras is being told to fast for 7 days, one whole week. All right. As you read on, what ends up happening is that he's actually commanded to fast for 3 weeks, 3 entire weeks. All right. So to do that, how many days are there going to be? Let's go to verse 20, 2nd Ezra 5 and 20, and read
2nd
through
Ezra,
22.
chapter 5 and verse 20. And it says, and so I fasted 7 days, mourning and weeping, like as Uriel the angel commanded me. And after 7 days, so it was that the thought of my heart were very grievous unto me again, and my soul recovered the spirit of understanding, and I began to talk with the Most High again.
So what we're reading here is Esdras did as he was told in verse 13, to fast for 7 days, and he would hear great things. And now he's clarifying that he fasted for the 7 days. He fasted, he was mourning and weeping. He says, like as Uriel, the angel commanded me. Commanded him where? What we just read in verse 13. He says, and after 7 days, so it was that the thoughts of my heart were very grievous unto me again, and my soul recovered the spirit of understanding, and I began to talk with the Most High again. All right. So let's go to 2nd Ezra chapter 6 and verse 31 through 36. So we're going to skip ahead again.
The book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 6 and verse 31. If thou wilt pray yet more and fast 7 days again,
Fast 7 days again. Read.
I shall tell thee greater things by day that I have heard. For the voice is heard before the Most High, for the mighty had seen thy righteous dealing. He had seen also thy charity, which thou
That
hast had.
chastity?
Dealing, he had seen also thy charity, which thou
Yeah,
hast had,
chastity. Like chastity.
thy chastity. Thank you. Thy chastity, which thou hast had ever since thy youth. And therefore had he sent me to show thee all these things, and to say unto thee, be of a good comfort and fear not. And hasten not which
Hasten not.
and hasten not which the times that are past, to think vain things, that thou mayest not hasten from the latter times. And it came to pass after this that I wept again, and fasted 7 days in like manner, that I might fulfill the 3 weeks which he told me.
Fast the how many, or he would fulfill how many weeks?
3 weeks which he told me.
So 3 weeks, he said, and it came to pass after this that I wept again and fasted 7 days in like manner, that I might fulfill the 3 weeks which he told me. 3 weeks of what? He told him one time 7 days, another time 7 days, and a third time 7 days. All right. Read on.
And in the 8th night was my heart vexed within me again, and I began to speak before the Most High.
So in the 8th night, so after the 3 weeks were done, he was on the 7th day of the third week. That next day was what? He says, and in the 8th night was my heart vexed within me again, and I began to speak before the Most High. Let's go back up to verse 35 to make it clear. And it came to pass after this that I wept again and fasted 7 days in like manner, that I might fulfill the 3 weeks which he told me. So he did his third week of 7 days. He fulfilled the 3 weeks. After the 3 weeks were done, it says, and in the 8th night was my heart vexed within me again, and I began to speak before the Most High. So how long did he fast? He fasted for 3 weeks, totaling how many days? 21 days. 21 days divided what into 3 7-day weeks. That's why after the 7th day of the third week, he says in the 8th night. After the 7th day of the third week, he says in the 8th night. That should make it crystal clear that a week is 7 days. It should be clear. A week is 7 days. He's clearly separating that 8th day, that 8th night, from the 7 previous days, which was the third week, and from the previous 21 days, which were the 3 weeks. That 8th night is going into the first day of the fourth week, if that makes it clear. So what we're going to see is that Esdras, he basically had a similar experience as Daniel. When you read Daniel, you read Esdras, and you read John the Revelator in Revelation, you can see that all three of them had a very similar experience when it came to the Most High and having a vision of the Most High and the angels being sent to them. Very similar experiences. Let's go to Daniel 10 and 1 through 2. What do I mean by similar experiences? We're going to read one of the similar experiences here.
The book of Daniel, chapter 10 and verse 1. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar.
Belteshazzar.
Belteshazzar, yeah, Belteshazzar. And the thing was true, but the time appointed was long, and he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks.
So just like we just read in Esdras, just like Ezra, Daniel mourned for 3 full weeks. When you read it more in detail, he was fasting, he was weeping, he was mourning 3 full weeks, just like Esdras did. What are 3 full weeks? He's stressing 3 full weeks. We just read the account in Second Ezra 6 and 31 through 36. 3 full weeks is 21 days. 3 weeks of 7 days each, just as Esdras did. So that should be clear. How many days are there in a week? There are 7 days in a week. 7 days in a week. And it can't be broken. You can't be adding no eighth day and ninth day and talking about their transitional days. They just don't count. You don't find that, you don't read that anywhere in the scriptures that we're told to add an eighth day or a ninth day to the week. So we're going to move on. The next question that we're going to ask is, what is a day to the Most High? Because He gave us the 7 day work week, which is modeled after His 7 day work week. But a day to the Most High is not the same as a day to us. Let's go to 2 Peter 3 and 8.
The book of 2 Peter, chapter 3 and verse 8. But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day.
So he says, but beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. So when you look at the creation in the days of Most High, or the Most High's day, each day took 1,000 years. Day one took 1,000 years. Day two took 1,000 years. Day three took 1,000 years. Day four took 1,000 years. Five took 1,000 years. Six took 1,000 years. Creation took 6,000 years with 1,000 years of rest. That's what we get out of the understanding of what a day is to the Most High. How can we prove that one day to God is 1,000 years? We're going to do it. We're going to go through the precepts, and we're going to show how 1,000 years or one day to the Lord is 1,000 years. Where for us, it's much shorter, much, 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 much shorter. A day for us is nothing to the Most High. All right. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon 2 and 23.
The book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2 and verse 23. For God created man to be immortal, and made him to be an image of his own entity.
Eternity.
Eternity.
Says, for
Nevertheless,
God created man, just verse 23. For God created man to be immortal and made him to be an image of his own eternity. Man was created to be immortal. We were supposed to, have immortality where we weren't supposed to die. But unfortunately, because of our forefather Adam, which we're going to read about, death was brought upon man. And what you're going to see as we go through the precepts is that Adam was supposed to be immortal, but because of the sin he committed in the garden, he died in his first day. Now, am I saying that Adam died when he was 1 years old, or his a 1 day old? No. You're going to understand what I mean as we go through the precepts, which is going to prove that one day to the Most High is 1,000 years. Let's go to Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15 through 17. We got to go precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. So, what are we trying to show you here and prove to you? That 1,000 years to the Most High is one day. Go ahead and read what you got.
The book of Genesis, chapter 2 and verse 15. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of the good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die.
So it says, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. So as we read this, we're thinking in our carnal minds, if your parent tells you, you know what, you better not go in that refrigerator and uh, eat that, whatever, let's say you have a piece of cake in there or something. You better not go in that refrigerator and grab that piece of cake, because if you grab that piece of cake and eat it, the day you eat it is the day you go die. I'm gonna whoop your butt. Okay. So you go in there, you get the cake, or you don't go in there and get it. But in your mind, you're thinking, man, I better not go in there and get that cake, because as soon as I eat that cake, I'm gonna drop dead and die. That's what Adam and Eve thought, that's what the Most High was saying, that the moment you eat from that tree of knowledge of good and evil, you're gonna drop dead right then and there. But because of their misunderstanding, that opened the door for the serpent to come in and bamboozle Eve. Let's go to Genesis 3 and 1 through 5.
The book of Genesis, chapter 3 and verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, yeah, had God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. For God had known that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil.
So he says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, yea, hath God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? You see how slick he is. He's already planting that seed in her mind. He's playing mind tricks with her. That's like your brother coming in after your parent told you better not eat that cake, and he comes in and he's like, mom and dad said you better not eat nothing out that refrigerator, right? He comes in and he sees you um, looking for some grapes or something to eat. He wants to eat the cake later on. He wants it for himself or whatever the case is. And he comes in and he bamboozles you. Or actually, no, that's a bad analogy. Let's say he wanted to eat those grapes himself. And he wants to come in and trick you into believing that you can't eat the grapes. So he comes in being slick and he's like, didn't mom and dad tell you don't eat nothing out that fridge? And he's like, well, they told me not to eat. They said I could eat, but they told me don't eat that cake. He's playing mind tricks with her, is what he's doing. It says, yea, had God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? He knew good and well that's not what the Most High told him. It says, and the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God had said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. Now the serpent being slick, he says, and the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. He's being slick. Well, you're not going to surely die. You're not gonna. He knew. He's like, well, you're not gonna drop dead right now. He's not telling her that, but he's, in his mind, he's like, what? Well, you're not gonna die right now. You're not gonna surely die. You're gonna die, but not right now. He knew. He knew what was really going on.
Right.
He's playing with her. All right. So we know what ended up happening. She wanted to, she wanted to be like the Most High. She wanted to be like her husband. She wanted to be equal. She wanted women's rights. And so
Right.
she listened to the serpent. She sinned. She got her husband to sin. We know the whole story. We're not going to go through the whole thing. And what ended up happening? Death came unto man because of the transgression of Adam. Let's go to Second Esdras 3 and 4 through 10.
Book of Second Esdras, chapter 3 and verse 4. O Lord, who bearest rule, thou speakest at the beginning when thou didst plant the earth, and that thyself alone, and commanded the people, and gavest a body unto Adam without soul, which was the workmanship of thine hands, and didst breathe into him the breath of life, and he was made living before thee. And thou laidest him into a paradise which thy right hand had planted before ever the earth came forward. And unto him thou gavest commandment to love thy way, which he transgressed. And immediately thou appointed a death in him in his generations.
So it says, and immediately thou appointest death in him and in his generations. Read.
Of whom came nations, tribes, people, and kindred out of murder. Out of
Out of
number.
murder.
And every people walk after their own will, and did wonderful things before thee, and despised thy commandments. And again, in process of time, thou broughtest them flood upon those that dwelt in the world, and destroyed them. And it came to pass in every of them, that as death was to Adam, so was the flood to these.
So death came upon man because of Adam's transgression. So when the Most High told Adam that in the day that you eat thereof, you shall surely die, did he mean that you're going to drop dead right then and there? Let's find out. Let's go to 1 Samuel 11 and 13.
The book of First Samuel, chapter 11 and verse 13. And Samuel said, there shall not a man be put to death this day, for today the Lord hath brought salvation in Israel.
So it says, actually, and Saul said, there shall not a man be put to death this day, for today the Lord hath brought salvation in Israel. So he's saying on this day, this particular day that we're in right now, that a man should not be put to death. He's showing that in the day is saying the same thing as this day and today. When he says there shall not a man be put to death this day, he's saying that the same thing as this day or today. Today, nobody's going to die. Let's go to 1 Kings 2 and 24.
The book of First Kings, chapter 2 and verse 24. Now therefore, as the Lord liveth, which had established me and set me on the throne of David my father, and whom had made me an house as he promised, Adoniah shall be put to death this day.
So it says, Adoniah shall be put to death this day. See, that was what Adam was believing when the Most High told him and gave him that commandment not to eat of that tree. He believed in his mind that that meant he was going to die on that particular day, The day that he committed the sin, that he was going to die right then and there on that day or this day. Let's go to Romans 5 and 8 through 21.
The book of Romans, chapter 5, and verse 8. And it says, "But God commanded his love toward us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Much more than being now justified by his blood, we shall be saved from wrath through him. For if when we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his son, much more, being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life. And not only so, but we also join in God through our Lord Jesus Christ, by whom we have now received the atonement. Wherefore, as by one man sin enter into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. For until the law, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there is no law. Nevertheless, there reigned from Adam to Moses, even over them that had not sinned, after the similitude of Adam's transgression, who is the figure of him that was to come."
So death passed unto all men, for that all have sinned. But death was passed on to us because of what? The transgressions of Adam. That's why in verse 14 said, nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses. Go ahead and read on.
But not as the offense, so also is the free gift. For if through the offense of one many be dead, much more the grace of God and the gift of grace, which is by one man, Jesus Christ, had abounded unto many. And not as it was by one that sinned, so is the gift. For the judgment was by one to condemnation. I can't say condemnation, but the free gift is of many offenses unto justification. For it for if by one man's offense death reigned by one, much more they which receive abundance of grace and of the gift of righteousness shall reign in the life by one, Jesus Christ. Therefore, as by the offense of one judgment came upon all men to condemnation, even so by the righteousness of one the free gift came upon all men unto justification of life. For as by one man's disobedience many were made sinners, so by the obedience of one shall many be made righteous. Moreover, the law entered that the offense might abound, but where sin abound, grace did much more abound. That as sin had reigned unto death, even so might grace reign through righteousness unto eternal life by Jesus Christ our Lord.
So as we can see, through one man, death entered into the world. By the obedience of another, righteousness has been, I don't want to mess it. Let's go to verse 19. It says, for as by one man's disobedience many were made sinners, so by the obedience of one shall many be made righteous. So death came upon men because of the transgression of Adam. Now, when you read the scriptures, if you go by the carnal mind state Adam was in, Adam believed he was going to die the moment that he partook of the tree that they were told not to partake of. So, did Adam die right then and there? That's the question. He didn't. What happened? Let's go to Genesis 5 and 1 through 5.
Genesis chapter 5 and verse 1. This is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam in the days when they were created. And Adam lived 130 years and begat a son in his own likeness, after his image, and call his name Seth. And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died.
It says, and all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. So, in God's terms, it says, so basically, Adam died the same day he was born. If you understand that.
Right.
Adam died in the same day that he was born. Did he make it to that he made it just under that 1,000 years, where in God's days he would have made it to that first day. He came just short and he died. So in the day that he committed the sin, in terms of God's number of a day, Adam did die in the day that he committed the transgression. So what we see happen is that man was created to be immortal. The Most High took that away. Adam came close to completing that first day, and he died. And that what you see after that is that as time went on, the number of days that man lived was reduced lower and lower and lower and lower. So as you read on, Seth, he lived 912 years and then he died. Enos, 905 years. Canaan, 910 years. Mahalalel, 895 years. Jared, 962 years. Enoch, who came next, didn't die. He was translated and taken up. Let's go to verse 21 through 24.
Genesis chapter 5 and verse 21. And Enoch lived 60 and 5 years, and begot Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God after he begot Methuselah 300 years, and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him.
It says, and Enoch walked with God and he was not, for God took him. So he was 300 years. Let me start at 21. Enoch lived 60 and 5 years and begot Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God after he begot Methuselah 300 years and begot sons and daughters. So after he was 300 years old is when he started having his kids. It says, and all the days of Enoch were 365 years. So 365 years was he on the earth. Enoch didn't die. He got taken up by the Most High. Enoch basically was an example for us, as we read earlier, Romans 15:4, for whatsoever things were written for time were written for our learning. Enoch was taken up because of his righteousness. He was our example that if we live righteously, we, like him, will be taken up and will receive everlasting life. Just like Christ. Christ was taken up. Elijah was taken up. These were examples for us to see that if we do what the Most High says, we're not going to see death. We're going to be taken up. We're going to receive that everlasting life. But as we're showing, is that as time went on, the years began to get shorter and shorter and shorter. When you get to Methuselah, lived 69 years. Lamech lived 777. Noah, 950 years. Um, let me see, hold on. Let's go to Genesis chapter 11 and verse 10 through 32. And what you start to see as this is a linear diagram, or whatever you want to call it, of Shem's lineage. And as you go through it, you start to see that the number of years of man continues to dwindle down and down and down. Go ahead and read.
The book of Genesis, chapter 11 and verse 10. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years and begat sons and daughters. And Arphaxad lived 530 years and begat Salah. And Arphaxad lived after he begat Salah 403 years and begat sons and daughters. And Salah lived 30 years and begat Eber. And Salah lived after he begat Eber 430 years and begat sons and daughters. And Eber lived 430 years and begat Peleg. And Eber lived after he begat Peleg 430 years and begat sons and daughters. And Peleg lived 30 years and begat Rehu. And Peleg lived after he begat Rehu 209 years and begat sons and daughters. And Relu lived 230 years and begat Serug. And Rehu lived after he begat Serug 207 years and begat sons and daughters. And Serug lived 30 years and begat Nahor. And Serug lived after he begat Nahor 200 years and begat sons and daughters. And Nahor lived 930 years and begat Terah. And Nahor lived after he begat Terah 190 years and begat sons and daughters. And Terah lived
119 years.
um
Back at verse
and
24. I mean 25.
25. And Nahor lived after he begat Tahar and
Terah.
100 Terah and 119 years and begat sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years and begat Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abraham, Nahor, and Haran begat Lot.
So
And
it's
Haran
actually Abram before his name got changed to Abraham.
and
Go ahead and
Haran
read.
died. Yeah, and verse 28, and Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldeans. And Abraham and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarah, and the name of Nahor's wife, Milak,
Milcah. It says, and
Milcah.
Abram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah. Go ahead and read.
The daughters of Haram, the father of Milcah, the father of Ishkah. But Sarai was barren; she had no child. And Terah took Abraham his son, and Lot the son of Haran his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abraham's wife. And they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran.
So you can see it went all the way from Adam, 900 and something years, all the way down to Terah, where he only lived 205 years. So as man dwelled upon the earth, the Most High shortened his days and shortened the days of man's lifespan. Let's go to Genesis 6 and 3.
The book of Genesis, chapter 6 and verse 3. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years.
So it got cut down in Genesis 6 3 down to 120 years. Let's go to Psalms 90 and 1 through 10.
The book of Psalms, chapter 90 and verse 1. Lord, thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou hast formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. Thou turnest man re- to destruction, and sayest, return, ye children of men. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night.
So again, showing us that 1,000 years to the Most High is is the same as a day. It's nothing to him. Go ahead and read.
Thou carriest them away as with a flood. They are as a sleep in the morning. They are like grass which groweth up. In the morning it flourisheth and groweth up. In the evening it is cut down and withereth. For we are consumed by thine anger, and by thy wrath are we troubled. Thou hast set our iniquities before thee, our secret sins in the light of thy countenance. For all our days are passed away in thy wrath. We spend our years as tale that is told. The days of our years are 60 years and 10. And if by reason of strength they be fourscore years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away.
So verse 10, it says the days of our years. So the Most High dealing with the years, it says, for 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch of the night in verse 4. Getting down to verse 10, it says, the days of our years are 60 years and 10. A score is 20. So when it says the days of our years are 60 years and 10, 60 years would be 60 years, 20, 40, 60 plus 10. That's 70 years. He says, and if by reason of strength, you're in real good health, you've eaten right, exercised a little bit, um, you've kept the commandments, you've done the things you're supposed to be doing. He says, and if by reason of strength, they be 80 years. So if you're lucky, you might live to be 80 years. It says, yet is their strength, labor, and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away. So you could see that from Adam living 900 and something years, the days of man's life were cut down all the way until we're lucky if we live 80 years. Nowadays, living under Esau's rule, we're lucky if we make it to 60 years old. We're lucky if we make, look at how many 35 and 40 and 45-year-old people are dying right now, just out of the blue. Heart attacks, um, what do you call it? Brain aneurysms, all kinds of stuff happening. Dying of the coronavirus, blood clots, cancer, high blood pressure, all kinds of stuff. People are just, just dropping dead. And they, some of them, they don't even know what they died of. Other reasons, suicides, murders, We're lucky to see 60 years old nowadays. And yeah, you do have those anomalies where, there are some people that are still um, able to live until 100, 110, 115 years old. There's few and far between, but you have those anomalies. But overall, we're lucky to see 60 years old now. So, what are we showing? That a day to the Most High is 1,000 years. How did we prove it? By showing that when it came to dealing with Adam and Adam's transgression in the garden, where Adam was told that in the day that he partook of eating or eating off the tree that was in the garden, the tree of good and evil, he said that in the day that he would eat it, Adam would die. Adam's mindset thinking that he meant on that exact same day. God's mindset meant he was thinking in his terms of a year, because we were made to be immortal. We were supposed to live well past 1,000 years. We were never supposed to die. And because of Adam's transgression, that was taken away from us. But how do we get it back? Through repentance and keeping his commandments and getting that promise of salvation. We will get that immortality. It would be granted to us, that gift that we just read about. It would be given to us again. But how do we get it? We have to keep the commandments. All right. So let's move on. We're going to deal with the work week now. All right. The work week. Because earlier I mentioned, as we were going through Genesis 1, that what was being created by the Most High was he was creating the 7-day work week when it comes to dealing with the week. How long is a week? 7 days. And is it called the work week? Yes, it is called the work week. So let's deal with that. Let's go to Genesis 1 and 1 through 5.
The book of Genesis, chapter 1 and verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moved upon the face of the water. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day.
So what was it the first day of? It was the first day of the work week. He says in the evening and the morning were the first day. It's the first day of the work week. How do we know this? We're going to go through again. We're going to go through precepts proving it. All right. Let's go to Exodus 20 and 8 through 12. We're dealing with the work week.
The book of Exodus, chapter 20 and verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy maidservant, nor thy maiden-servant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it.
So it says, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. You've got 6 working days and a day of rest on the seventh day. 6 working days, day of rest on the Sabbath day, which is the seventh day. You cannot break it. You can't add an eighth day and a ninth day, calling them transitional days, and then have another 7 day. You can't do that. It's not scriptural. Let's go to Genesis 2 and 1 through 3 again. We've already read this a couple of times. We'll go through it one more time.
The book of Genesis, chapter 2 and verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made.
So the seventh day he rested. That 6 days cannot be broken. That 7 days cannot be broken. 7 day work week, 6 days of work, day of rest, and it starts over again. 6 days, 7 day rest. 6 days, 7 day rest. There is nowhere in the scriptures where it says eighth day, ninth day, and then, you know, that's 3 days, that's three Sabbath days in a row, basically. You have the 6 day work week, and then the seventh day Sabbath, and then you have the so-called transitional day. You cannot do that when it comes to the Sabbath. Let's go to Exodus 23 and 12. Let's just read through these real quick because it's basically telling us the same thing.
The book of Exodus, chapter 23 and verse 12. 6 days thou shalt do thy work, and on the seventh day thou shalt rest, that thine ox and thy ass might rest, and the son of thy handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed.
So it says, 6 days thou shalt do thy work, and on the seventh day thou shalt rest, that thine ox and thine ass, talking about your donkeys, may rest, and the son of thy handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed. 6 days work, seventh day rest. Let's go to Exodus 31 and 13 through 17.
The book of Exodus, chapter 31 and verse 13. Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbath ye shall keep, for it is given between me and you.
And for it is a sign.
For it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Lord that doth sanctify you. You shall keep the Sabbath therefore, for it is holy unto you. Every one that defile it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever doeth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to the Lord. Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. Wherefore, the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed.
So just as the Most High worked 6 days and on the seventh day rested, he gave us the same thing. 6 days to work, seventh day to rest. 6 days to work, seventh day to rest. He tells us over and over and over again. Go to Exodus 34 and 21. Over and over again, he tells us the same thing. 6 days work, seventh day rest. 6 days work, seventh day rest. You don't read nothing about for the Sabbath day, nothing about no transitional days. Go ahead and read.
The book of Exodus, chapter 34 and verse 21. 6 days thou shalt work, but on the seventh day thou shalt rest. In earing time and in harvest thou shalt rest.
So 6 days thou shalt work, but on the seventh day thou shalt rest, telling us the same thing again. Let's go to Exodus 16 and 22 through 26.
The book of Exodus 16 and verse 22. And it came to pass that on the sixth day they gathered twice as much bread, two 2 mers for one man, and all the rulers of the congregations came and told Moses. And he said unto them, This is that which the Lord had said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. Break that which ye will bake today, and see that ye will see, and that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning. And they laid it up till the morning, as Moses bade, and it did not stink, neither was there any worm therein. And Moses said, eat that today, for today is a Sabbath unto the Lord. Today ye shall not find it in the field. 6 days ye shall gather it, but on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none.
Where'd you stop at?
26.
Go to 30.
Go to 30. Verse 27. And it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the seventh day for to gather, and they found none. And the Lord said unto Moses, How long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? See, for that the Lord had given you the Sabbath, therefore he giveth you on the sixth day the bread of 2 days. Abide ye, every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the seventh day. So the people rested on the seventh day.
So the same thing goes for our people today. How long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? How long are we going to continue to not keep his commandments? He gave them a simple instruction to gather 6 days, and on the seventh day to not gather it. He didn't need to see. That's the problem with Israel, is Israel thinks that, that they need the Most High to come and give them specific instructions every single time he tells us to do something. He had already told us over and over and over again, 6 days work, 7 days nothing. 6 days you can work, seventh day you don't cook anything. Why do we not cook anything? Because we're going to make sure that we make enough food for 2 days. He had already told us this. But what did Israel do? Israel didn't listen. They went out anyway, breaking the commandment. And he was actually testing them. He wanted to see would they keep the commandment or not. Israel will not listen to the Most High. 6 days work shall be done. The seventh day is a day of rest. We cannot go 8 days or 9 days and then have a Sabbath. That's sin. That seventh day, regardless, the Most High expects his people to be resting. When it comes to the lunar Sabbath, we can't say that those 2 days don't count, or that you know what I mean? There's only one place in the scriptures where the Most High tells us um, that certain days are called intercalary days, and that's in the book of Enoch. There are 4 intercalary, and that's where these guys got the concept from. The intercalary month, the transitional days. They borrowed it from Enoch because they read Enoch, and they said, "Well, our calendars keep screwing up, so we'll just add a 13th month, and or our days are off. We have these 2 extra days, so if Enoch has got these intercalary days, we can have transitional days." That's the thought process, but they're not going to tell you that they're getting it from Enoch. There are 4 intercalary days in Enoch, and they have to do with what? The transition of going from spring to summer, summer to fall, fall to winter, and winter to spring. Those 4 days are the only days that you read about that are called intercalary days that we're commanded to have. We're not commanded to have transitional days after the Sabbath. If you do the calendar correctly, they're independent of each other. You got the 7-day work week that runs independently of the month and yearly calendar or year cycle. So again, when it comes to the lunar Sabbath, we can't say that those that 8th or 9th day don't count and then have, and then wait to have a Sabbath. It makes no sense. 6 days you work, the 7th day you have a Sabbath. Then you have these 2 days that, basically are added, and then you have another 6 days, and then that's an 8-day week. That's a 9-day work week. Isn't that what the Roman calendar had at one point? They had what I think it was 8-day work week or something like that. Something like that. We cannot add to the days of the week. It's a 7-day week, period. No, you know what I mean? And that's the problem with Israel. Israel always wants to do their own thing. The Most High is specific. Go to Exodus 35 and 2 through 3. We'll read it again.
The book of Exodus, chapter 35, verse 2. 6 days shall work be done, but on the 7th day there shall be to you an holy day, a Sabbath of rest to the Lord. Whosoever doeth work therein shall be put to death. Ye shall kindle no
No,
fire through just the one.
yeah, that's the one. Go to Leviticus 23 and 3.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 23 and verse 3. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is a Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings.
You don't read anywhere where it says 6 days shall work be done. The 7th day is a Sabbath of rest. And then the 8th day is a Sabbath of rest. And the 9th day is a Sabbath of rest. Because with those 2 transitional days that supposedly don't count, do you count those as Sabbath days? Do you not go to work on those days, or do you still go to work on those days? Are they're not counted as work days, or do you understand what I mean?
Right.
That cannot be broken. Let's go to Luke 13 and verse 14. Go to the New Testament.
The book of Luke, chapter 13 and verse 14. And the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation because that Jesus had healed on the Sabbath day, and said unto the people, there are 6 days in which men ought to work. In them, therefore come and be healed, and not on the Sabbath day.
How many days did he say that men ought to work?
6 days.
And on the Sabbath day, not, come to be healed, even though they were off. You know what I mean? And what they were trying to say, as far as, Christ healing on the Sabbath day. The point that we're getting from this is that even These rulers of the synagogues, as wicked as they were, understood that there were 6 days, 6 working days, and a day of rest. They understood the Sabbath. They understood the 7-day work week, that you're not supposed to be adding no transitional days following a lunar Sabbath, or adding a 13th month for that matter. Let's go to Ezekiel 46 and 1 through 7.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 46 and verse 1. Thus said the Lord God, the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days. But on the Sabbath it shall be open, and in the day of the new moon it shall be open.
It says, thus saith the Lord God, the gate of the inner court that looketh towards the east shall be shut the 6 working days. Not 7 working days, not 8 working days, and then on the 9th day have a Sabbath. None of that. But on the Sabbath it shall be open, and in the day of the new moon it shall be open. Read on.
And the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate without, and shall stand by the post of the gate. And the priest shall prepare his burnt offering and his peace offering, and he shall worship at the threshold of the gate. Then he shall go forth, but the gate shall not be shut until the evening. Likewise, the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate before the Lord in the Sabbath and in the new moon.
It says in the Sabbaths and in the new moons, telling you what? That those days are 2 separate days. And the new moons is simply talking about new months. That in the day of the Sabbath days and in the days of the new months, that what? It says, likewise, the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate before the Lord in the Sabbaths and in the new months or the new moons. Read on.
And the burnt offering that the prince shall offer unto the Lord in the Sabbath day shall be 6 lambs without blemish and a ram without blemish. And the meat offering shall be an ephah for a ram, and the meat offering for the lamb as he shall be able to give, and him of oil to an ephah. And in the day of the new moon it shall be a young bullock without blemish, and 6 lambs and a ram, they shall be without blemish. And he shall prepare a meat offering, an ephah for a bullock, and an ephah for a ram, and for a lamb according as his hand shall attain unto, and him of oil to an ephah.
So, what is this showing us? Number one, that there are 6 working days. 6 working days. And then a Sabbath day of rest on that 7th day. Also showing us that what? The Sabbaths and the new moons are different days. And that the new moons or new months are actually Sabbaths. They're days of rest also. Give me 1 second. Let's go to Numbers 10 real quick. In verse 10.
The book of Numbers, chapter 10 and verse 10. Also, in the day of your gladness, and in your solemn days, and in the beginning of your months, ye shall blow with the trumpet over your burnt offerings, and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your God. I am the Lord your God.
Just going to show some real quick. It says, also in the day of your gladness and in your solemn days. What are the solemn days? Feast days. And in the beginnings of your months, meaning that the feast days and our beginning of our months are separate days, just like the beginning of our months, meaning our new months or new moons, as they're called, are separate days. It says also in the day of your gladness and in your solemn days. And in the beginnings of your months, you shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your God. I am the Lord your God. You got to see that they were not called new moons. You don't even see the word new moon appear. I believe it's in First Kings. Let's go to Numbers 28 and 11.
Book of Numbers, chapter 28 and verse 11. And in the beginnings of your months, ye shall offer a burnt offering unto the Lord, 2 young bullocks and 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year without spot.
Read that again.
Verse 11. And in the beginning of your months, ye shall offer a burnt offering unto the Lord, 2 young bullocks and 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year without spot.
So it says, and in the beginnings of your months, ye shall offer burnt offering unto the Lord, 2 young bullocks and 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year without spot. The Most High didn't call them new moons, or they were beginning of your months or new months. All right, so I'm going to share my screen real quick. Now, I am in no way any kind of Hebrew scholar. I don't speak Hebrew. I don't know Hebrew. That's the only reason why I'm relying on this. Let me come back. Share. Or actually, no, screen one. So that's another thing we want to make sure. Let me know when you see it.
It's there.
Can you see that? So
Yeah.
I'm just going to the Blue Letter Bible now. Um, Numbers 10 and 10. It says, also in the day of your gladness and in your solemn days, in the beginnings of your months, ye shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your God. I am the Lord your God. I'm going to click on tools. Now you can see that it has this the precept here going down, and each of the precepts or the parts of the sentence broken up into their Hebrew wording, if you want to call it that. And in the beginnings of your months, we're going to click on your months. And we get this word right here. I believe it's, I'll click on the thing. I believe it's Kodesh, something like that.
Strong's H2320. Hodesh. Hodesh.
It was Hodesh. The K is silent, it sounds like, huh? Hodesh.
Strong's H2320. Hodesh.
Because I kept pronouncing it Kodesh. So it's Hodesh. I don't know any Hebrew. I don't pretend to know Hebrew. And that's what a lot of our people are doing. They got, the knowledge of some Hebrew words, and you hear them using Hebrewish, just like some of our Northern Kingdom brothers speak Spanglish, where they
Right.
mix the Spanish with the English. That's
Right.
what a lot of our people are doing with the Hebrew. They're speaking all this English and they throw a few Hebrew words in there, and our people go, oh, they got the Hebrew.
Right.
Can't hold no conversation in Hebrew, but they got a few Hebrew sentences down, a few Hebrew words. They know how to open up their live feeds with this big old elaborate Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, big opening greeting and the power and spirit of Yahweh, you know what I mean? And throw out a few Hebrew words there and bamboozle you. Because everybody goes, oh, they heard a few Hebrew words. These brothers prophets. It's crazy.
Right.
But what is this word Hodesh that I was calling Kodesh? What is it? What does it mean? The new moon, month, monthly, the first day of the month, the lunar month. Now, me and Ezra and I were talking about this the other day, actually, because a lot of our people, it's funny how somebody will say they read the book of Enoch, or they read Jasher, or they read Jubilees. And some of these camp leaders will be quick to say, the white man wrote them books. The white man wrote those books.
Right.
And then turn around and go to Strong's and open up Strong's
Right.
and get a Hebrew word or a Hebrew, just like I'm doing right now. That's not what I wanted, but this is what I wanted. Who is James Strong, or who is Strong? So that's why you got to pay attention to some of the things that come out of the mouths of some of the leaders in Israel. They talk about the white man wrote that book. The white man wrote them. But yet they'll open up Strong's. They'll go to Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. They'll pick up, all these other books. What is it? The Two Babylons. Well, a plethora of books that Israel uses in their studies that are written by who? The white man.
Mm-hmm.
Who wrote Strong's Concordance? This is the guy right here, James Strong. What is he? And am I mistaken? Is that not an Edomite?
Yep.
That's why we got to be careful of who we're listening to. The white man wrote that. As I mentioned last week, if it wasn't for the Most High putting it on the spirit of the white man, on Esau, to preserve this book and these scriptures for us, these books, these records of our people, we wouldn't even have them. Esau could have easily just destroyed them all, and we wouldn't even have it. But it's only when it seems like it's convenient for some of these guys. Oh, the white man wrote that. Everything that we're getting, did an Israelite create the internet? Did one of our people create the World Wide Web for us to be able to go type in here and look up James Strong to see who this man is? We're in captivity. We're under the rule of Esau. God told us that we were going to have to go to our enemies in the want of all things. So, just like I pointed out last week, King James was an Israelite. He was a so-called black man. But was he the first one to translate the Bible into English? No, he was not. Esau had translated into English before he did it, before he had it translated into English. What I'm trying to say is that you've got to listen to the things coming out of the mouths of some of our leaders, because some of these men are liars. And some of them may honestly not realize that what they're teaching is not truth. But the majority of them, these men are consciously lying to us and deceiving us and contradict themselves to the point to where, like I'm pointing out, they'll sit there and tell you, don't read the book of Jasher. Don't read Enoch. Don't read Jubilees. The white man wrote them books. And turn around and go to the Strong's. I'll read about him. James Strong, August 14th, 1822 to August 7th, 1894, was an American academic, biblical scholar, lexicographer, whatever you say, Methodist theologian and professor, best known for being the creator of Strong's Concordance. This man right here, that all the Israelite groups are getting their Hebrew from, except for the ones that, and they still use the blue letter. They still go to the blue letter Bible and go to Strong's Concordance and use Strong's to get their Hebrew, along with that fake Hebrew that unfortunately, one of our leaders who claimed that an angel came to him. An angel appeared in his apartment and taught him this Hebrew that we get the name Yahweh and Yahushai from. Now, we've got to go back and be honest with ourselves and examine some of the leaders from 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And you have to admit that some of these dudes went off. That's why we even had one of those guys even signing off on one of the brothers calling himself the God sent comforter.
Right.
Have some of them claiming that an angel came to him and taught him the true Hebrew. And that's where we get, I can't even pronounce it. What is it? Something, the Lash Quadash. Do you know how to pronounce it? Because I don't know how to pronounce it.
No.
But that's where they get this form of Hebrew from. No different than the Yiddish that they're speaking over there in Israel today with these Edomites that are over there. It's made up. It's got some real Hebrew in there with some made up stuff. Instead of waiting, because he says, wait ye upon me. But we want to be deep. We want to listen to these men that try and razzle dazzle us with these Hebrew words, that they know a few Hebrew words, and they hit you with the Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shais. And when they open up their live feeds, they go through this whole big opening I would like to give all praise and glory and honor to Yahweh and his son Yahweh Shai, and going through this whole big old spiel and razzle dazzle you, and our people eat it up. And then turn around and don't read them books. The white man wrote them books. But still open up Strong's Concordance. Let's click on it. The Strong's Concordance, what is a Bible concordance, an index of every word in the King James Version, constructed under the direction of James Strong. Strong first published his concordance in 1890 while professor of exegetical theology at Drew Theological Seminary. So Esau comes up with these big words that he knows we're going to have a hard time pronouncing. He's got a head start on us in speaking English. So if you want to read about James Strong, you can go and read just Wikipedia. Google him. Oh. I don't want to get off topic. Um, it looks like, see, they're being slick. They're taking this stuff out, showing that this hermeneutics is based off of this Greek god Hermes. I don't have time to read through all of this because otherwise we'll be sitting here for a little while. Let me try this. Just give me a second. And see, they're getting slick with this stuff because you used to be able to just type it in and it was not that hard to find um, documents on here that clearly showed that hermeneutics was based off of this Greek Hermes. Um, yeah, we're gonna have to go back and read through some of this stuff to find it. Let me try one more thing. Up, here we go. All right, there we go. Try it that way. It says hermeneutics comes from the name of the Greek messenger god Hermes, the patron of travelers, rogues, liars, and thieves. As the carrier of messages between gods and mortals, Hermes had to be fluent in both of their idioms. It was his task to build and maintain an interpretive bridge between alien worlds. That's where hermeneutics come from. That's where they get this whole philosophy in biblical interpretation, coming from this Greek god Hermes. And you can see there, I had to type it in. They've changed it to where you got to type it in this way in order to find it. But if you get a chance, type it in, read about it, and you will see where even some of our own brothers are using this hermeneutics. It's running rampant in the Christian community. That's what they're teaching. They're teaching hermeneutics in their theology schools. So some of our brothers have been hanging out with these Christian apologetics and have learned this hermeneutics and are bringing it into the Israelite community, which is, again, our people going off because we're not supposed to be following these philosophies, especially after this Greek god. But again, that's Israel wanting to follow behind these other nations and following after these other philosophies and doctrines and mixing them in just like our forefathers did. But again, going back to the topic, what did we want to show? Going back to the Strong's Hebrew, that the word Hodesh, as I was pronouncing it, Kodesh, has a simple meaning: the new moon, month, monthly, the first day of the month, the lunar month. That's simply what it means: the first day of the month. The new moon, month, monthly, the lunar month. Now, when you look at this, you got to ask yourself, as we were talking about the other day, when it comes to Strong's, can we believe every one of these interpretations that Strong's put in the Strong's Concordance? Can we fully rely upon it? He was an Edomite. Did he have our people's best interest at heart when he came with some of the definitions of these words? Can we fully trust it? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves. So when we go back to like Numbers 10 and 10 and Numbers 28 and 11, the Most High told us that also in the day of your gladness and in your solemn days and in the beginnings of your months, ye shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings. Numbers 28 and 11, in the beginnings of your months, you shall offer a burnt offering unto the Lord. That of your months, as we just showed, has the same word, Hodesh, as new moon. When you see the word new moon, it means the same thing. Just so happen uses the same Hebrew word. So in a lot of the places where you see the word new moon, it's not necessarily talking about looking up at the luminary in the sky and that it's the new moon. It's simply telling us that it's a new month. In many of the places. Go ahead, what were you saying?
So yeah, that's right.
So we are mistakenly reading new month in several places of the scriptures and misinterpreting it that it's talking about the new moon, that there's a new moon in the sky, and that means that we're supposed to celebrate this new moon and have a holy day. And that's the beginning of our months. No, 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 no. And like I said, we'll deal with that when we get deal with the month in the next lesson, dealing with the calendar. All right, so let's move on with this lesson so that we're not too long. So let's ask ourselves a question. Is the 7-day work week independent of the yearly calendar? Yes, it is. It is independent. As we just showed, there's nowhere in the scriptures where we are told to have transitional days in the 7-day work week. It's only in the Enoch calendar do we have 4 intercalary days. That's where they got the concept from. Even though they tell you not to read the book, they've read the books.
Mm-hmm.
There are 3 different types of weeks that are mentioned in the scriptures. We've got the work week. We've got weeks, which is a plural form of week when it's talking about multiple weeks. And then we have another one as in weeks, which is talking about plural weeks, as in as you read with Jacob in fulfilling her weeks, or meaning 7 Jubilee weeks, or dealing with the Feast of Weeks. So we're going to deal with the weeks. Plural, meaning plural weeks. That there's weeks. You'll understand what I mean in a second. Let's go to Leviticus 12 and 1 through 7. Leviticus
The
12
book,
and 1 through 7. Go
the
ahead.
book of Leviticus, chapter 12 and verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a woman have conceived seed and born a man child, then she shall be unclean 7 days. According to the days of the separation for her infirmity shall she be unclean. And in the 8th day the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 3 and 30 days. She shall touch no hollow thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purification be fulfilled. But if she bear a maid child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her separation, and she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 66 days. And when the days of her purification are fulfilled, for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation unto the priest, who shall offer it before the Lord and make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean from the issue of her blood. This is the law for her that hath born male or female.
Okay, so this is dealing with the woman after she's given birth, whether it was a man child or a male or a boy child, or if it's a female or a maid child or a female child or a girl child. Just using the different terms so you understand. So when it comes to dealing with weeks, plural, you can see in verse 5, it says, But if she bear a maid child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks. That 2 weeks is talking about what? 14 days. For the man child in verse 2, it says, Then she shall be unclean 7 days. meaning what? 1 week. Because if you go by the lunar Sabbath and you get to verse 4, it says, and she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 3 and 30 days. She shall touch no hollow thing. 3 and 30 days is 33 days. Can you divide 33 days evenly by 7 days? No, you cannot. You can't do it. So you can't follow, if you're using the lunar Sabbath, or you're using any of these days like that, it's not going to work. All right. It says, and she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 3 and 30 days. She shall touch no hollow thing or come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled. So what's happening here is you've got the first week, which is 7 days. Then you add the 8th day. Is the 1 day here part of that week, that first week? If you go by the lunar Sabbath, it would be, but it's separate. That's going into the second week. It says, then she shall be unclean 7 days, according to the days of separation for infirmity shall she be unclean. And in the 8th day, the flesh of her foreskin shall be circumcised. So you got 7 days of that first week, plus the 1 day where the child is circumcised. And then she continues in her purifying another 33 days, 3 and 30 days, for a total of what? 41 days. A total of 41 days. Okay. For the female child. It says, but if she bear a maid child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks. 2 weeks is how long? 14 days. As in her separation, she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 60 days. Remember, a score is 20, so that's talking about 60. 60 plus 6 is 66 days. So what? You've got the 2 weeks, which is what? 14 days. You've got 60, which is 60 days plus the 6 days. You add all that together and it comes up to how many days? 80 days, which tells you what? That when it says that she'll be unclean 2 weeks, that 2 weeks makes 14 days. Letting you know that there are 7 days in a week. 7 days in a week. 2 weeks is 14 days. Going back to what we were using earlier to calculate using Daniel with the 3 full weeks. And we're going to get back to that again. Let's go to Daniel 10 and 2 through 4. Dealing with multiple weeks. This is proving that there's only 7 days in a week.
The book of Daniel, chapter 10 and verse 2. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth, neither did I know in my flesh at all, till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. And in the 4th and 20th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel.
So you stop right there. So he says, in those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. We've already went through this. We already calculated and everything like that. 3 full weeks equals what? 21 days. Can the number 21 be divided evenly by 7? Yes. What does that give you? 3. Now, what is it actually? You got to also go back and think about this. what is the problem? What is happening here? Because Daniel says in the 24th day of the first month, and 3 weeks, 3 full weeks before that, he was what? He was fasting, he was mourning, he was praying. And let me rephrase that. The 24th day of the first month, that 24th day, is actually a part of the 3 weeks. Okay, make that clear. So he was mourning and fasting for 3 full weeks. This is telling you something. This is the first month. The first month of the year. What was supposed to be going on at this time when Daniel was fasting for 3 weeks? Daniel should have been in the right smack dab in the midst of the Passover, right? Should he have been fasting for 3 whole weeks? But the question is, was Daniel in sin? This is telling you what? That when we were in Babylon, obviously they were not keeping the Passover, which we read about because it was after they came back from Babylon is when they held the first Passover since they had gone into captivity. They weren't keeping it. So no, Daniel was not in sin. They were not being allowed to keep the customs. They forgot after being in Babylon for 70 years, they forgot the custom. They pretty much forgot just about everything, following Babylonian customs. That's where we got the names of the months, started calling them after Babylonian names and everything. Go and read the story about Bel and the dragon. They were even trying to make our people bow down to this Bel idol. Daniel wouldn't go along with it. But I just wanted to point that out, that if you go back and examine this, Daniel should have been right there in the midst of Passover and the days of unleavened bread. And there should have been no way that he should have been fasting during this time period. But I don't know, maybe he was fasting in prayer because he wanted to be celebrating Passover. Who knows? I don't want to speculate on it, but just wanted to point that out. But what we want out of it for this lesson is that he said he was fasting and mourning for 3 full weeks. And he also calls it 3 whole weeks. 3 full weeks, 3 whole weeks is 21 days. All right. That should be clear. Let's go to the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 6 and verse 31. And you're going to read through verse 35.
Second Ezra 6.
Yeah, and 31 through 35.
The book of Second Ezra, chapter 6 and verse 31. If thou wilt pray yet more, and fast 7 days again, I shall tell thee greater things by day than I have heard. For thy voice is heard before the Most High. For the mighty had seen thy righteous dealing. He had seen also thy charity, which thou hast had ever since thy youth. And therefore had he sent me to show thee all these things, and to say unto thee, be of good comfort, and fear not, and has not with the times that are past to think vain things, that thou mayest not hasten from the latter times. And it came to pass after this that I wept again and fasted 7 days in like manner, that I might fulfill the 3 weeks which he told me.
So just again, we're just using this again to point out that Esdras went through a similar situation as Daniel. Daniel's similar situation as Esdras or Ezra, where they were fasting and in prayer for 3 whole weeks. And the angel came to them and started talking to them. They saw visions and everything. All right. Um, Showing us that that there are 7 days in a week, 21 days in 3 weeks. All right. So let's go to the book of Genesis, chapter 29. You're going to read 27 through 28.
The book of Genesis, chapter 29 and verse 27. Fulfill her weeks, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. And Jacob did so, and fulfilled her weeks, and he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also.
So he's telling Jacob, you want to marry my daughter? You got to fulfill her week. And we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. So what does he mean by fulfill her week? It says, and Jacob did so and fulfilled her week. And he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also. He had to um, wait 7 years. Fulfilling her week simply means that he waited a whole Jubilee week for Rachel in order to marry her. And the same for the first sister also, which he really wanted Rachel, but he got bamboozled. He worked the 7 years that he worked that week. I'm going to call it a week. He worked that week and he received this first wife. He got bamboozled. So he got tricked into working another week. So you can essentially say Jacob worked a week, seven days in order to get his first wife. And then he worked another week in order to get his second wife. So did he literally work just 7 days and get his wife and then work another 7 days and get his second wife? He worked 2 weeks, but this is talking about Jubilee weeks. Jubilee weeks. 7 years. Let's go. Let's prove that. Let's go to Exodus 23 and 10 through 11.
The book of Exodus, chapter 23 and verse 10. And 6 years thou shalt sow thy land, and shalt gather in the fruit thereof. But the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and lie still, that the poor of thy people may eat, and what they have the beast of the field shall eat. I like manner thou shalt deal with thy vineyards and with thy olive yards.
So this was a commandment in Exodus dealing with the land. He says, in 6 years thou shalt sow thy land and shalt gather in the fruits thereof. But the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and lie still, that the poor of thy people may eat. And what they leave, the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner thou shalt deal with thy vineyard and with thy olive yard. What is he talking about? 6 years, sow the land. 7th year, let it rest. Let's go to Leviticus 25 and 3 through 7.
Leviticus chapter 25 and verse 3. 6 years thou shalt sow thy field, and 6 years thou shalt prune thy vineyard, and gather in the fruit thereof. But in the 7th year shall be a Sabbath of rest unto the land, a Sabbath of the Lord. Thou shalt neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard. That which groweth of its own accord of thy harvest, thou shalt not reap, neither gather the grapes of thy vine undressed, for it is a year of rest unto the land. And the Sabbath of the land shall be meat for you, for thee, for thy servant, and for thy maid, and for thy hired servant, and for thy stranger that sojourneth with thee, and for thy cattle, and for thy beasts that are in thy land shall all the increase thereof be met for meat. Increase therefore be meat.
I read verses 8 through 12.
Verse 8. And thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee.
Unto thee.
Yeah, unto thee. 7 times 7 years. And the space of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 49 years. Then shalt thou cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to be sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. In the day of atonement shall ye make the trumpet sound throughout all your lands. And ye shall hallow the 15th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family. A jubilee shall that 15th year be unto you.
That
Ye shall
50th year.
That 50th year be unto you. Ye shall not sow neither reap that which groweth of itself in it, nor gather the grapes in it of thy vineyard undressed. For it is the Jubilee, it shall be holy unto you. Ye shall eat the increase thereof out of the field.
So what you see here is that we've got the Jubilee week and we've got the Jubilee year, okay, or even Jubilee months. So let me go back up from Leviticus 25 and 3. It says, 6 years thou shalt sow thy field, and 6 years thou shalt prune thy vineyard and gather in the fruit thereof. But in the 7th year shall be Sabbath of rest unto the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. Thou shalt neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard. That which groweth of its own accord of thy harvest thou shalt not reap, neither gather the grapes of thy vine undressed, for it is a year of rest unto the land. So as he gave us the 7-day work week, he also gave the land a seven what do you call it? A Sabbath, a 7-day week also, as you can call it, of a 7-day or a 6-day week of gathering, pruning, and everything like that, the land, and then the seventh day, which is the 7th year, letting it rest. So he gave us the 7-day work week. He gave the land the 7-day or 7-year. I don't even know what to call it.
Right.
Work week, I guess, or work year. And 7th year, it's I don't want to say the wrong thing. It's hard to come up with the word to actually describe it. Let me get to verse 7 or verse 8. It says, and thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee, 7 times 7 years, and the space of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 49 years. Then shalt thou cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month, in the day of atonement shall ye make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. And ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land, until all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you. And ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family. A jubilee shalt thou 50th year be unto you, and ye shall not sow, neither reap that which groweth of itself in it, nor gather the grapes in it of thy vine undressed. For it is a jubilee, it shall be holy unto you. You shall eat the increase thereof out of the field. So he says in verse 8, and thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee, 7 times 7 years, and the space of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 49 years. So that 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7, which is what? 49, which is what he says, 7 times 7, which is what? 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 7 weeks, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, or what you would call 7 Jubilee weeks. When we go back to what was spoken to Jacob about Rachel, fulfill her weeks, 7 weeks or 7 years. That is the first week. That's 1 week. So you had 7 Jubilee weeks, which is what, 49 years, which adds up to a Jubilee, which is 49 days. And then you add the 50th day, which makes a Jubilee year. It's 50 years. Is that making sense? Am I making that clear? Because I feel like I'm not being clear, like I'm messing it up or mixing it up in my wording or something. I just want to make sure that it's clear. A Jubilee year is 50 years. It's 49 years plus that 1 day, that 1 year, which equals a Jubilee year, is 50 years. So 7 years makes a Jubilee week. 7 years makes a Jubilee week, making 7 Jubilee weeks a Jubilee year. If that's making sense.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to touch up just a little bit, because you see the same thing when it comes to the Feast of Weeks or Pentecost. Not going to go too much in detail with it. We have another lesson that we do for Pentecost, for the Feast of Weeks, and teaching how to count the days and all of that on the calendar. Not going to go through all that right now. Just going to deal with it as far as we are dealing with the calendar, in that the calendar deals with these different types of weeks. So the Feast of Weeks, let's go to Tobit 2 and 1. You're going to read just Tobit 2 and 1.
The book of Tobit, chapter 2 and verse 1. Now when I was come home again, and my wife Anna was restored unto me with my son Tobias in the feast of Pentecost, which is the holy feast of the 7 weeks, there was a good dinner prepared me, in the which I sat down to eat.
So Tobit is telling us, now when I was come home again, and my wife Anna was restored unto me with my son Tobias in the feast of Pentecost. The word Penta, it means 50, which is the holy feast of the 7 weeks, which is the holy feast of the 7 weeks. There was a good dinner prepared me, in the which I sat down to eat. The feast of Pentecost is mirrored somewhat after what we're reading about in Leviticus 25 and 8 through 12 about the Jubilee years. It's mirrored off the same thing. 49 years, and then adding that 50, that one day to make it 50. You find the same thing when you deal with the Feast of Pentecost, only it's not dealing directly in Jubilee years. It's dealing with our actual 7-day Sabbath days, as we could put it. All right, let's go to Exodus 22 and 29 through 30. I keep
The book of
thinking
Exodus,
clicking on these things, and I'm not to change the precepts that we're on.
the book of Exodus, chapter 22 and verse 29. And it says, "Thou shalt not delay to offer the first of thy ripe fruits and of thy liquors. The firstborn of thy sons shalt thou give unto me. Likewise shalt thou do with thine ox and with thy sheep. 7 days it shall be with his dam. On the 8th day thou shalt give it me."
All right, so he's telling us, thou shalt not delay to offer the first of thy ripe fruits and of thy liquors, the firstborn of thy sons shalt thou give unto me. Likewise shalt thou do with thine oxen and with thy sheep. 7 days it shall be with his dam. On the 8th day thou shalt give it to me. Let's go to Leviticus 23 and 9 through 14.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 23 and verse 9. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye be come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then ye shall bring a sheaf of the first fruit of your harvest unto the priest.
So it's telling us the
wait.
same thing that we just read in Exodus 22 and 29, that we should not delay to offer the first of our ripe fruits and of our liquors unto him. All right, go ahead and read on.
And he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. And ye shall offer that day when ye wave the sheep and he lamb without blemish of the first year for a burnt offering unto the Lord. And the meat offering thereof shall be 2 eels of fine flour mingled with oil, an offering made by fire unto the Lord for a sweet savor. And the drink offering thereof shall be of the wine, the forepart of an hin. And ye shall eat neither bread nor parched corn, nor green ears, until the self same day that ye have brought an offering unto your God. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations and all your dwellings.
So he's explaining to us about how to go about keeping the Feast of Weeks, or Pentecost, as we call it. It says, And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye be come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then ye shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest. A sheaf means a handful. It's like a handful of the grain that you're going to present. And he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. That means the day after the Sabbath. It says, And ye shall offer that day when you wave the sheaf, and he lamb without blemish of the first year for a burnt offering unto the Lord. And the meat offering thereof shall be 2 deals of fine flour mingled with oil, an offering made by fire unto the Lord for a sweet savor. And the drink offering thereof shall be of wine, the fourth part of an hin. And ye shall eat neither bread nor parched corn nor green ears until the selfsame day that ye have brought an offering unto your God. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations and all your dwellings. And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering. 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. So just like we just read about the Jubilee year, seven, seven, 7 years, 7 times 7. It's the same thing. Coming up to 49 years, it's the same thing. Says, after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7 Sabbaths shall ye number 50 days. And ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord. Ye shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2 10 deals. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baken with leaven. They are the first fruits unto the Lord. Now, I said I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go into this, but you almost can't just a little bit, because some of our people believe that this is tied into Passover. Some people start their counting the day after Passover. You can't. It's not the day after Passover. And then some people think that it's that first week, um, not that first week, that first Sabbath after Passover. Meaning that, let's say Passover is on Wednesday, or the fourth day of the week. After you have that Passover, then that Sabbath, and then that day after Sabbath is when you give that grain offering. It can't be that day either. It has nothing to do with Passover. How do we know this? Because of what's written right here in verse 17. It can't be any time during the Passover or the 7 days of Feast of Unleavened Bread, because he's telling us right here, ye shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2 10 deals. They shall be fine flour. They shall be baken with leaven. It's after Passover is done and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, that first Sabbath afterwards, that day after that Sabbath, is when you start the count. Because you have to offer 2 wave loaves of 2 10 deals. They shall be what? Baken with leaven. I'm sorry. I'm getting all screwed up here. This is talking about the day of Pentecost. I'm getting confused there. I'm confusing myself. Let me back up. All right. This is after. You see, that's why I want to wait until we actually do the lessons. Now here I am mixing myself up. Scratch that. Scratch it. Erase it. All right. Let me read on. I screwed up. That's why I want to wait till we actually do the lesson, because I'm going to end up saying something wrong. They're going to have somebody going and see, they don't know what they're talking about. Them brothers don't. I don't want to mess it up. But it says, you shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2 10 deals. They shall be a fine flour. They shall be baken with leaven. They are the first fruits unto the Lord. And ye shall offer with the bread 7 lambs without blemish of the first year, and 1 young bullock and 2 rams. They shall be for a burnt offering unto the Lord, with their meat offering and their drink offerings, even an offering made by fire of sweet savor unto the Lord. All right. Let me go back up to verse 15 again. And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7 Sabbaths shall ye number 50 days. And ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord. All right. So as we were reading, it's 7 Sabbaths and then a day added, which is 50 days, which goes back to what we were talking about before. With the Jubilee year, It lines up with the same thing. You got 49 Jubilee years, and then that 50th year makes the Jubilee. All right. Let's go to Exodus 34 and verse 22.
The book of Exodus, chapter 34 and verse 22. And thou shalt observe the feast of weeks, of the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the feast of ingathering at the year's end.
So he says that thou shalt observe the Feast of Weeks, is what we just read about. The Feast of Weeks, that's 7 weeks, which is counted, and then that days added, 50 days. That's what it's talking about. That's the Feast of Weeks. Day of Pentecost, 50 days. Let's go to Deuteronomy 16 and 9 through 10.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16 and verse 9. 7 weeks shalt thou number unto thee. Begin to number the 7 weeks from such time as thou beginnest to put the sickle to the corn. And thou shalt keep the feast of weeks unto the Lord thy God with a tribute of a free will offering of thy hand, which thou shalt give unto the Lord thy God, according as the Lord thy God had blessed thee.
So again, it's telling us in Deuteronomy 16 and 9, 7 weeks shalt thou number unto thee. Begin to number the 7 weeks from such time as thou beginnest to put the sickle to the corn. So in other words, when you begin your harvest, right? Let's go to Deuteronomy 16 and 16.
Deuteronomy 16:16. 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God, in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before thee, before the Lord empty.
So there's 3 times that the Most High commanded for us to appear before him. The Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is Passover, the Feast of Weeks, which is Pentecost, and in the Feast of Tabernacles, that we're commanded to appear before him. Let's go to 2 Chronicles 8 and 12 through 13.
The book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 8 and verse 12. Then Solomon offered burnt offerings unto the Lord on the altar of the Lord, which he had built before the porch, even after a certain rate every day, offering according to the commandment of Moses, on the Sabbath and on the new moons and on the solemn feast, 3 times in the year, even in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacle.
Okay, so again, he says there's certain offerings that we're supposed to offer. Says that Solomon offered burnt offerings to the Lord on the altar of the Lord, which he had built before the porch, even after a certain rate every day, offering according to the commandment of Moses, on the Sabbaths and on the new moons, which is new months, and on the solemn feasts, 3 times in a year, even the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Feast of Weeks and then the Feast of Tabernacles, staying in line with what was written in Deuteronomy 16 and 16, that in 3 times in the year, the men are expected to appear before the Lord, and the Feast of Weeks is one of those times. That is a major high holy day, just like Passover and Feast of Tabernacles, the Feast of Weeks. And we're just throwing it in here because it has to deal with the week. And the Feast of Weeks was also called Pentecost, meaning 50. And that's what we want to show next, is that it was actually called Pentecost in the scriptures. Let's go to see, I just did it again, didn't I? I forgot to click on the thing. Let's go to Acts 2 and 1.
The book of Acts, chapter 2 and verse 1. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place.
All right. So, and when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. What is Pentecost? It is that day, that high holy day that we read in the Old Testament was called the Feast of Weeks. Let's go to Acts 20 and 16.
The book of Acts, chapter 20 and verse 16. For Paul had determined to sail by Ephesus, because he would not
Ephesus.
Ephesus. Thank you. By Ephesus, because he would not spend the time in Asia, for he hasted if it were possible for him to be at Jerusalem the day of Pentecost.
So again, for Paul had determined to sail by Ephesus because he would not spend the time in Asia, for he hasted if it were possible for him to be at Jerusalem the day of Pentecost, to be at the Feast of Weeks. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 16 and 8.
The book of First Corinthians, chapter 16 and verse 8. But I will tarry at Ephesus until Pentecost.
So he says, but I will tarry at Ephesus until Pentecost, meaning that Feast of Weeks. Let's go to 2 Maccabees 12 and 32.
The book of Second Maccabees, chapter 12 and verse 32. And after the feast called Pentecost, they went forth against Gorgias, the governor of Idumea.
So it says, and after the feast called Pentecost. So that was another name that they used to talk about or to call the Feast of Weeks. So it wasn't just because some people think that it just popped up in the New Testament, the word Pentecost. No, it was actually used also in the book of Maccabees in the Apocrypha, also that it was called Pentecost. Um, so it wasn't just a New Testament thing. All right. Um, let me see. Let's go to the book of Numbers, chapter 28, and verse 26 through 30.
The book of Numbers, chapter 28 and verse 26. Also, in the day of the first fruit, when ye bring a new meat offering unto the Lord, after your weeks be out, ye shall have an holy convocation, ye shall do no servile work. Ye shall offer the burnt offering for a sweet savor unto the Lord, 2 young bullocks, 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year, and their meat offering of flour mingled with oil, 3 deals unto 1 bullock, 2 deals unto 1 ram, a several 10th deal unto 1 lamb throughout the 7 lambs, and one kid of the goat to make an atonement for you. Ye shall offer them besides the continual burnt offering and his meat offering. They shall be unto you without blemish, and their drink offering.
All right. Um, let's go to Tobit 1 and 6, because Tobit is showing because they were in captivity. Um, and so he was the only one that would leave and actually go to Jerusalem to go to the feast.
The book of Tobit, chapter 1 and verse 6. But I alone went often to Jerusalem at the feast, as it was ordained unto all people of Israel by an everlasting decree, having the first fruit and 10th of increase with that which was first shorn, and them gave I at the altar to the priests, the children of Aaron.
Okay, so he's letting it be known that during the Feast of Pentecost, during all the feasts, he was the only one that would leave Nineveh because they were in captivity on the by the Assyrians, and his, they were his particular family. They were living in Nineveh, so he was the only one that would go back to Jerusalem during the feast. The other people wouldn't go. He was as he's telling us, he was the only person of the northern kingdom that would actually go back and keep the feast of the Feast of Weeks or Pentecost, or whatever other feasts were happening. He was the only one that would go. Okay. So basically, this lesson again is dealing with the week. What was the name of the week? When does the week begin? How many days are in the week, and so on. The next lesson is going to be about dealing with the month. The one after that with the year. So, Lord's will, this was clear, showing that the Most High, when he, at the beginning of creation, he created what was called the work week. 6 days of work, 7th day of rest. And those days are not to be broken. We cannot be adding an 8th and a 9th day, calling them transitional days when it's not written in the scriptures. There's nowhere written that he commanded us to have transitional days after the days of Sabbath, because the moon screws up the Sabbath days if you try to follow the lunar month. The 7-day work week is independent of the month and year calendar. It's independent. They're separate. And Lord's will, after we go over the month and go over the year and go over the Enoch calendar in more detail, because that's we're going to be pulling out the book of Enoch and the book of Jubilees and so on, in order to show exactly how the calendar is made up. And it should be crystal clear. All right. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 12 and 13 through 14.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12 and verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
And with that, we're going to say shalom. Most High Christ bless. Enjoy the rest of the Sabbath. Lord's will. These first 2 lessons have brought clarity, dealing with the calendar, dealing with the day, dealing with the week. As we said, next one is going to deal with the month, and then we're going to deal with the year. Okay. Enjoy the rest of the Sabbath. Most High Christ bless to you, and shalom.